thank you for coming out, guys. Like, I always feel like, you know, when your time is valuable, and I appreciate that. At the same time, you guys are here to learn something, get strategies, get actionable steps that will help you out. If you're a coach, maybe to help out clients. But this is important. So I've done a lot of seminars before. Many of you may have been here before. For them, this is new. I mean, some of the information may cross over what I've spoke about before, but based on the things that I see and we see inside of the gym, I try to put together content and education based on the things that we see problems with. Obstacles, struggles, you know, things that people need help with, right? Both on the information side and then obviously the integration, transformation side of things, which I'll talk about more. There's obviously a big problem, right? This is, I mean, because we're in fitness, and I know the statistics, you know, it's even worse because here's the crazy part, right? Like, there's more information than ever. There's more products than ever on the market. You can find almost anything, right? When it comes to training-based, nutrition-based, things of that nature. And yet at the same time, when you look at this, it's kind of crazy, right? US is second when it comes to obesity, punching like that 40% line, which is nuts. Actually, matter of fact, in the last 16 years, there's more gyms, there's more info, there's more weight loss products than there's ever been. And in the last 16 years, obesity is more than doubled, right? Nothing is slowing down, right? Nothing is slowing down. So obviously there's a problem and we need solutions. For us, the solution starts from the inside out. Me personally, I can't worry about fixing everything. The only thing we can worry about is helping one person, right? I always said, you help one person, you help one man, one woman, you help a family. You help a family, you help a community. You help a community, you help a city, you help a city, you help a state, and so on. Right? That starts from the inside out. And the same goes for you. If you want to make a change, change starts with you, then it trickles down into all the people that you care about and love. Right? And on the other side of things, hey, nobody's getting healthier either. Right? When you look at these numbers, like I said, this is just to 2011. It's actually gotten worse since then. And you look at things like diabetes, stroke, heart disease, actually all things associated with, I would say, things that we can control, right? Whereas deaths used to be associated with things we couldn't control as much. Now, it's with things we can't control. Anytime the train comes by, just don't worry about it. I might pause for a little longer. It's a cool thing, but it can numb you out sometimes. All right, so this is what I was talking about, right? We have a lot, like, wherever you go, you'll see magazines, lose 20 pounds in 4 weeks, magic pill for this, right? You have so much of it, it's crazy. Anywhere you look, there's a new celebrity that has a diet, you know, a diet book that's gonna help you get in shape in a really short amount of time, okay? So, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. It's the dieting industry, right? Because, let's put it this way, we're not gonna talk about the dieting industry, we're gonna talk about the problems that I would say the dieting industry is causing, but really the education behind why you're losing weight, gaining weight, losing it, gaining it, right? The whole science behind it. Not some, you know, I would say dogma or some, I would say opinionated stuff, but the actual science behind all of this stuff, which is very, very important. All right, so now you might think of a diet as any of these. Like these are the things that I hear a lot, right? Beginnings and endings, restricted foods, that's the big one. You say diet, automatically like, oh man, I'm gonna have to cut something out. Okay, you think point systems, you think low carb, low fat, healthy versions of food, we'll talk about that too. Big misconceptions, right? Bad food, good food. Clean versions of food, that's another thing. Hey, I wanna eat clean, what does that mean? If I ask you what clean means, I'd love to hear what that means, right? There's all these misconceptions of what these things mean. Weight loss, health, and of course you've probably heard the one with the, you know, the word diet has the word die in it, so there's that as well. All right, so many things that come to mind. And then you might, you know, these are just some of the things that you see popping up, right? This is by far not everything, but some of the more popular diets that you might think of in this day and age, right? Low carb, and you have things like keto, Atkins, which is very similar, right? It's just kind of came back around. You got low carb, paleo, you got body type, you've probably heard of that too before. Detox, cleanses, supplements, low fat. And, you know, we're gonna talk about whether good or bad, not necessarily as much, you know, as either of these good or bad, but more kind of like demystifying, you know, what they promise and that there's a solution for you for something that's not crazy stressful. Because automatically if I say, hey, listen, you're gonna go, I can't tell you just in the last week the conversations that I've had. I'm going on a diet. oh, okay, what diet are you going on? You know, and they'll fill in the blank. They'll say something. Great. Is that something you're going to do for good? Well, no, I'm just doing it for a little while, right? Okay, cool. So that's what we're going to talk about. And you're going to see how that philosophy and that mentality actually can be very, let's just say there's no good solution to it. How about that? There's no good solution to it, right? So the reality is that diets are absolute failures, right? 6 out of 7 people that are overweight will lose a significant amount of weight in their lifetime. So they will, right? We're not bad at losing weight. Actually, we're great at losing weight. Phenomenal at losing weight, right? But within 1 year of the weight loss, 80% will have relapsed to their pre-diet weight, right? That's pretty shocking and terrifying, right? Within one year. Then within 2 years, that number is 85, and within 3, it's 95. Okay, so yes, that's the truth. Diets literally have less than a 5% success rate. Now, if you're a betting man in Vegas, like I am not anymore, I wouldn't bet on that, right? So on top of that, this is the big one too, and we're going to talk about this fat reshooting. Like 1 to 2/3 will regain even more weight than they had before they started the diet, and it's a phenomenon called body fat overshooting, right? And I'll explain everything about why it happens, because here's the kicker: you guys have to understand what happens first, right? If you've ever heard of awareness precedes change, right? If you don't know something, if you don't know what you don't know, how can you change? It's impossible. Right? You have blinders on. So first step is awareness. For awareness, there has to be assessment. For you guys to be here, this is kind of an assessment. As I go through stuff, you might be like, damn, I was doing this. Right? First 20 minutes, you might want to punch me in the head, and that's okay. Right? This is if you like memes, right? But 95% of dieters, right? Like this is the thing that really grabs your attention because it gives you this promise, right? MLM products, waist trainers, other fuckery as I like to call it, right? On the other side, you have hard work, consistency, self-monitoring, exercise, right? Which is not necessarily as sexy, like, okay, I got to do that, right? So this is another statistic that's pretty crazy, but weight loss attempts over a lifetime for the average person is 5.3. For women, it's 7, right? We're talking about significant weight loss. Okay, so we're talking about 15, 20 pounds plus here, right? Which is quite a lot. Now, once we go over what happens every time you lose weight and regain it, especially certain amounts, you'll see why this is very, very troublesome, right? And how do we stop it, right? How do we make a change in this? All right, so this is what I was talking about. People are absolutely great at losing weight, but horrible at keeping it off. I've never heard of a person who goes like, man, I'm trying to lose weight, and I've lost 0 weight, and have really attempted hard to do it. You're not gonna hear that. What you're gonna hear is, I lost it, and then I regained it. That's usually going to be a problem in the majority of cases. Now, so this is what happens, okay? This is kind of like the short picture of what happens with our bodies when we lose weight, right? So you go on a diet. Most people significantly restrict calories, right? A lot. I'm gonna go on a diet, so I'm gonna really cut my calories significantly, okay? With that, this MR, this is metabolic rate, so your metabolism, right? Shoots down pretty significantly for a number of reasons that I'll talk about in a bit. You also lose lean body mass. So even if you drop calories significantly, you'll lose weight, but you're gonna lose some lean body mass with that, almost for certain. Especially if you diet drastically, right? Now your fat mass is gonna drop too, obviously, right? Usually what happens, so now you're in this phase, okay? In early regain, so you guys have seen this, been through it possibly. What tends to happen is calories go back up, and we'll break down what that means, how much our metabolism slows down. See, but your metabolic rate doesn't go up as fast as it went down. It starts going up slowly, right? Your lean body mass also doesn't go up as fast as your body fat mass goes up. And this is how overshoot happens, right? Fat gets put on way faster than your metabolism goes up, and then your lean body mass goes up. And then now you're maybe 5, 6, 7, 10 pounds heavier than when you even started, right? And that's called a fat overshoot. And this is the quick kind of snapshot of why that happens. Okay, now, I've actually talked about this one before about Oprah, right? But you've heard about this, right? X diet worked because celebrity athlete model person, lost weight on it. I put Oprah there because that's just a person that's very well known, is publicly, gone on a diet, lost weight, gone on another diet, and there's always been a different diet, right? So the question is, and this is the magic question, right? How much weight did they drop and sustain, right? And this is called weight cycling, and Oprah's an example. I actually had a chart in one of the last seminars where I showed where she started, and then she dropped weight, gained it, and it was kind of like this zigzag that was going up, right? Her foundational weight kept going higher, okay? And the research shows that frequency of dieting and weight gain over time are very closely related, right? The more you diet, the higher your weight is. Like it's been studied so much now that it's pretty much proven. Now, losing weight becomes subsequently more difficult the more you lose and regain weight. Anybody here lost weight, gained it back, and then the second time around when they tried to lose it, it was harder? Raise your hand real quick. All right. Everybody else has shoulder issues. I can't get my hand, all right. All right, cool. It's all right, we'll work on the shoulder too. Right? So, and you know, people will say it's a DNA thing, right? It's a genetic thing. Now, while genetics certainly play a part in it, right? But here's the kicker, okay? Obesity started popping up in the 1960s, so that's 60 years ago. You know, that's really actually not enough for our genetics to change that much. This is actually a crazy study where they did on following twins throughout their lifetime with the exact same DNA code, right? So completely identical DNA code. And the twin that dieted, and so this is a long time too, right? So this is over a course of a lifetime. And the twin that dieted more had significantly more body fat. So absolutely same DNA and very different because they dieted. 60 years is not a lot of time for the genetic DNA code of us to change over the course of, you know, the thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And I'll come back to that a little bit. But here's the reason why I'm saying this. I'm saying this because I hear it a lot. Well, Luka, you don't know. It's my genetics, right? While you may not have better, you know, for instance, Theo, if he's still here, he can eat a loaf of bread, you know, every 4 hours and be fine. You know, some people may not be able to get away with that. But the point of it is that like your DNA is not the thing that's holding you back, right? It's not, and remember, it's not dieting itself that makes people fatter, but the way in which they choose to lose weight. The weight cycling or yo-yo dieting. That's the problem, okay? That's the problem. And so this is very, very important, right? This is from Lane Norton and Peter Baker's book, which is a phenomenal book, right? But this is our self-defense system. This is what starts happening when we start aggressively dieting. There's 3 things that happen. Defend, so there's metabolic adaptation, right? If I start starving myself, your body's gonna fight back, and first thing it's gonna do is gonna start defending itself by slowing down your metabolism. Number 2, restore. Hunger and fat storage efficiency. And we're gonna go a little bit deeper into this. So basically your body becomes better, 1, at like taking in nutrients. That's why you get hunger pangs and cravings and things like that. But it also becomes better at storing the fat. Because it's thinking like, oh shit, I'm starving, I better be good at storing at it, okay? And the last one is prevent. And that's the number of fat cells, right? We'll actually dig into a little bit of how when you regain back weight fast, you actually add on additional fat cells, which is a big problem, and that's one of the biggest things that then makes it harder for you to lose weight, right? So always think about this, okay? Because this happens no matter what. There's no magical kind of system to fight it if you are dieting and you're dieting pretty aggressively. So think of it this way, right? If you're, you know, live in Seattle, you drive a lot, you're like, man, I want to have the Prius, I want to use as little fuel as I possibly can. I want to be as efficient as possible. Also, if you're at work, right, you think efficient. Well, listen, when we're talking about fat loss and we're talking about our bodies, like this is who we want to be, the Ferrari, okay? We want to be a gas guzzler. We want to have the shittiest efficiency on the planet. We want to have a small tank, right? That's what we want. But what ends up happening is that when you diet, so lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, you become the Prius, right? Prius meaning that you have to drive a really long way to burn the fuel, right? Which is not good for us. You have a really big tank and you're really good at taking up energy, right? So it's all the things that you don't want, okay? So just think of it in terms like you want to be the Ferrari, you don't want to be the Prius, right? In real life, if that's the case for you too, cool. But I'm saying with your bodies right now, that's what it is, right? Also, anybody raise your hand if you've ever heard of body fat points set theory. Basically what that means is that everybody has a certain body fat set point and you kind of stay there and it's harder to lose or gain weight from that set point, right? So that's what that theory is, and now it's been something that's been proven, right? So it's a widely accepted theory of metabolism that suggests each individual has a level of body fat where their body naturally sits, right? So, and your body will defend that level in an attempt to maintain it. So example, you're a 190 pound man, you've weighed around the same for a decade, you're at 16% body fat, So your body might be a fan of that. You've been there for me, I know I've been between 198 and 205 pounds for like 12, 15 years. They're there, right? Now you factor in these things: genetics, nutritional habits spanning a lifetime. This is very important. Activity and everything you've done, and it makes it a distinct variable for us, right? So you think about that, like when you've been at a certain place, good or bad, right? That becomes kind of your set point, right? So scientists believe that the point is largely controlled by the hormone leptin, which responds to changes in a size of fat cells. We'll touch on that in a little bit, but think of it like this. Leptin is kind of like a tissue thermostat, right? And what happens right now, right? If it got really, really cold, the temperature turns on and it heats it back up, right? It'll heat up the space to a certain temperature, then it'll shut off, right? If it gets really, really hot, there'll be air conditioning, it cuts it off. Not in this building, there's no AC, but in most other buildings, right? But the point is, it's gonna cool it back down because there's a set point that you have on a meter. So that is how the body set point theory works, right? Your body weight drops too low, man, it's gonna start adjusting, making you hungrier, up to getting cravings. Your metabolism is gonna rev down because you have to survive, right? The starvation mode. Other way, so if you go up, the opposite happens, right? So it's always trying to keep you in that set point. That's why you also find it difficult to do. So thermostat, right? When individual fat cells shrink during an energy deficit, the fat cells reduce secretion of leptin. So leptin is it's a very, very powerful hormone that regulates insulin, right? And tells your brain like, hey, listen, stuff is going wrong. We need more food, right? That's also why when you're starving, why does pizza look so much better than salad, right? There's parts of your brain that like regulate that because pizza has more calories. It's like, man, that's survival, right? So we can't cheat the brain, right? So what it also does, it reduces metabolic rate, so calories out. It increases hunger, calories in. So it's gonna regulate your body so that you can survive, right? That's the most important thing. Remember, your brain doesn't care about your six pack, right? It doesn't care about like how you look. It cares about survival the most, right? The most, okay? And so during surplus, so surplus meaning when you take in a lot of calories and you put on weight, leptin increases, which increases metabolism. It decreases hunger, right? So you don't have as much starvation and cravings going on. And it drives calorie balance in the negative direction, right, towards the set point. And we'll touch on like what the set point, why is it in this day and age, why does the set point not stop when you go up? I'll explain that, right? So the whole point of this is like, I've even heard it right now. It's January. It's like people are telling me, Luka, listen, man, in May I'm going here. I want to be ready, right? In March I'm going on this vacation. I want to be ready, right? I'm hearing it all like left and right. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. What I'm trying to say is that like this is part of the problem. I've had, over the last 13 years just in the US coaching people, thousands of people. I can't tell you how many times somebody come like 5, 6, 7 weeks ahead and go, listen, you got to train me, you got to give me a diet, I got to get beach ready, right? And we'll get them ready. Come back from vacation, like, man, I put on 11 pounds on vacation, right? And then it keeps rolling. And then actually they end up being beyond what they were when they started, right? And that becomes part of the issue because guess what? Weight lost, weight regained. There's a lot of stuff happening in the body. I just wanted to throw a pick in because I thought it was cool. It's like, yes, mom, diets cause us to regain weight, but this is true, right? And then the whole kicker is like, hey, why don't they tell us that before? Well, the diet industry, we'll see, it's a $68 billion industry, right? But the thing is, you can't white knuckle it, right? One of the central ideas I want to share is that every time you diet, you're activating body's self-defense system. It doesn't matter, there's always somebody who goes like, well, but, there's no buts. This is what happens, right? And the more you attempt to diet, the stronger signal to your body you send to the body to strengthen the defense system. Like literally, the more you diet, the more your body goes like, man, I got to fight this, right? I have to become more efficient because I'm constantly starving over and over again, right? So, and I believe, now this is based on data, that people who diet more during their lifetime are more likely to gain body fat long term instead of losing it. And once again, everything that I'm talking about here, if you guys want, I have a list longer than you can imagine of every study from PubMed, from everything else. This is not kind of like, I read a book and then I just kind of wrote this out. This is all studied stuff, right? So it's not the dieting, and remember, it's not the dieting that makes people overweight and fat, right? Because they can't sustain that energy deficit and live that weight and that way they regain it. And so this is why this whole message throughout is going to be whatever, and I'm going to keep coming back to this, right? If you choose to change something about your nutrition, about your training, about your life, it should stay for good, right? If you're thinking, I'm going to do this for 8 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, I'm going to detox for 30 days, we're going right back to this whole philosophy that we're trying to avoid, right? And this is going to keep coming up over and over and over again. Right now, some things are complex, but I'm going to try to keep everything as simple as possible, right? Any diet that I discuss has to be sustainable, right? And I'm not really against a lot. You know, when people say, are you against keto or are you against it? No, I'm not against any of them. And we're going to talk about, you know, what they have in common. But remember that success is only success if you can sustain a weight loss. Therefore, any diet you can't sustain in the long term should literally be banned from consideration. Right? And I'll give you an example. I mean, right now there's just a lot of people, because in the mainstream there's a lot of this, either whether it's low carb and paleo or specifically keto a lot right now, right? Now, me personally, I really love carbs. Raise your hand if you love carbs. Yeah, okay. All right. If you didn't, we'd have to have a talk. It's like a therapy talk. All right, let's talk. But for instance, right? So if you tell me like, hey, listen, I'm going to go on this. If you can't see yourself not eating a carb forever, don't do it, right? Because it's like, guess what? The whole time that you're on this, you're just thinking like, your brain's already like, man, pizza, or whatever, bagel, whatever that, you know, whatever it is that you like, right? That's carb-based, okay? So think of that. Now we're going to start off with metabolic adaptation. You guys have ever heard of metabolic damage? It doesn't exist, right? Because damage sounds like you're broken, right? Somebody goes like, oh, you got metabolic damage, and you're like, oh shit. Oh no, you know, but then you legitimately think like there's something wrong with you and, you know, you can't fix it and that's it, you're done. Like it's like a disease or something like that. It's not. Metabolic adaptation is currently the word that's used because your metabolism adapts. That's it. It adapts to the changes, right? So this is what happens, right? But it's not limited to. Adaptations are called decrease in basal metabolic rate. So basal metabolic rate, all that means is, so if I were just to sit here and not do anything at all, it is what my body needs to burn to just keep me alive. Heart rate, breathing, digestive system, blood flowing through my veins, like all the basic stuff, right? That is basal metabolic rate, right? The other thing that happens is massive decrease in your non-exercise adaptive thermogenesis. Like, so hey, all big words, just forget about it, like, right? I'll explain everything. NEAT, you know what NEAT is? It's fidgeting, right? If you, like, all the little things that you do throughout the day where you fidget, I'm a fidgeter. You see, I talk with my hands a lot. I'm a fidgeter, right? So when you diet and your metabolism adapts, you'll see people that are way more fidgety just start becoming less fidgety because their brain's going to just make them do less shit so that they can survive, right? That's what it's thinking, okay? But you see that, okay? The other thing that happens is alterations in your hormones, including insulin, leptin, ghrelin, thyroid hormone. And ghrelin is the hormone that ends up going up, and it's the one that makes you want to eat, right? You drop body fat, you drop calories, ghrelin goes up and tells the brain, food, right? And why do you think that like on diets you have more cravings, right? When you significantly drop calories, you end up having a lot of cravings, right? Ghrelin does that. So, post-diet, metabolic adaptation stops weight loss in its tracks because what was once an energy deficit eventually becomes an energy balance. I'm going to give you like a real simple example. Actually, I wanted to bring the whiteboard because if you guys had any questions, but let's say I'm just going to use myself as an example. So let's say I start, you know, at 2,500 calories, right? And this is at 2,500 calories, I'm at 0. I don't lose weight, I don't gain weight. And then I say, you know what? I got to go on vacation, so I'm going to start eating 1,800. Okay? And because I'm eating 1,800 calories over the course of, I don't know, let's call it like 12 weeks or 8 weeks, I lose 15 pounds, okay? Now, after 8 weeks, even though I'm still eating 1,800 calories, my weight loss stops, right? Why does it stop? Well, because now this is my new normal. This is my new baseline for not gaining or losing weight. Make sense? Okay? So this is important. I'm going to show you some studies that are pretty fascinating, but this is very important to understand. So when people say, hey, I plateaued, that's why, okay? Eating the same, now you can't go anywhere. So what happens, that's not all. Your body also upregulates the systems that regulate fat, like deposits, So when you eventually finish the diet, right? Because how many people have done, I'm doing this for 16 weeks, and maybe you hit your goal. So then once you hit your goal, you have finished the diet. You have hit your goal, right? And or you fall off the wagon, one or the other. Life happens, you know. And then you start eating back more, right? So remember, our metabolism now is like at 1800. I'm just arbitrary numbers, but just to give you an example, okay? And then we start eating more, okay? So now we start eating maybe 2300. A lot of times, actually, when you're finished, you're like, shit, thank you. Boop, you know, you go back to like 2600, okay? So guess what happens because of this? Of course, you start regaining weight very fast. And that's the beginning of that picture I showed is like your metabolism slowly goes back up, but your calories go up fast. So now you're gaining weight back fast, right? So now, not only are you storing fat more efficiently, remember your body, because you lost so much weight, said, hey, shit, I gotta be efficient with this. I don't know next time I'm gonna starve. I gotta be careful, right? So now, in this post-diet, storing more efficiently, but your hunger is also much greater due to lower levels of leptin, high levels of ghrelin, like all these hormones that make you wanna eat. Right? So these mechanisms drive you not only to increase how much food and calories you take. Remember, when I say energy, it's calories. Energy, calories, same thing. Energy, calories, right? They become more efficient at storing it, so you regain fat much faster than you lost it, right? That is exactly what happens. This is important to understand because we'll get people like, my fat loss has stalled, right? And that's why it stalls, because your metabolism catches up, and now it's slower, right? So back to the car analogy, right? Essentially, now he has to travel further to use up the same amount of gas, right? It can refill gas more efficiently, right? It can refill it way more efficiently than before. It extracts more calories and energy out of food, so it's become better at that. Also, it increases the size of the gas tank so that more energy can be stored. So fat cells, right? Everything we don't want. We want to be the Ferrari. Man, we're becoming the greatest Prius in the world, right? No bueno. So let's talk about, you know, Joe, for example. I was waiting for you guys to laugh because I put Fat Joe in my slides, so it's just like, you know, that was just a kicker. But let's take Joe, for example, as, you know, something that we talked about here. But let's delve into this quite a bit, okay? So Joe weighs 200 pounds and has TD, that's total daily expenditure, right? That just means how many calories he burns per day, right? Of 2,300 calories and goes on a 1,500 calorie diet. So I did that before. So 800 calories in deficit, which is quite a lot, okay? So after getting to 180 pounds, his metabolism catches up, and now his daily energy expenditure is 1,500. So he doesn't lose or gain weight. So at 1,500 calories, he's lost his 20 pounds. Now he's like flatline, okay? So maybe Joe decides that his diet is done, and he goes back to eating like he used to, or tough life circumstances happen, and they fall off the wagon, right? Life is life. Shit happens. Either way, Joe starts eating more, and data suggests Joe will eat more than before because of hunger hormones being elevated, right? This is all data-based. This is what happens with the 95%. Now, if Joe's eating 2,500 calories a day because he's glad the diet is over and he's stress eating, which is common for most people post-diet, right? He's actually in 1,000 calorie daily surplus now, right? And will regain weight rapidly. So, in fact, research data suggests he'll likely blow past his starting weight because his hunger hormones won't normalize until he's regained more than he's lost, right? And the crazy thing is this adaptation lasts for years. You'll actually see the study of the biggest loser contestants that lasted 6.5 years long, right? And I'll show you the actual numbers of this is like in the lab studies, right? Of exactly what happened, right? So he may now normalize at 210, and he may have increased his total number of fat cells, which may make it harder for him to lose weight in the future, right? So, and this is like, the Joe scenario is a lot of people's scenarios, okay? Like we've coached a lot of people in these scenarios. So when you see this, now because these are studies on mice, they're actually seeing this is very, very equivalent to human beings, because this is where they start with studies, right? So you have a person who loses the weight, right? They regain it at 2x the rate that they lost it, okay? Now, the next time around, they lose it at half the rate than they did here, and then they regain it at 3 times the rate. Crazy, right? So we're talking about, so one cycle of dieting, regain, another cycle of dieting to regain. So 2 cycles of dieting, 2 cycles of regain. I mean, this is scary shit, right? Would you say? Absolutely. And I'm going to be honest with you, as a partner, I want to scare you because this is real. Right? I could legitimately come in here and just go like, guys, I got this amazing thing that's 11 weeks long and you'll be shredded, you know? Buy this water here, right? But the thing is, you gotta know the reality. You gotta know the science behind what happens. That's the most important part. So, once again, am I scaring you? Good. It's scary, shit. Like, I mean, if it's real, it's real. Now, the thing is, I'm not purposely trying to scare you, but if I'm honest, like, you have to be a little scared to make you go like, I don't want to do this again the way that I've done it. That's what I want, right? So that you start really thinking about the way you're going to strategize the next time you go into a diet, right? So the way diets have been marketed, have been complete. It's complete betrayal. I mean, the stuff that gets marketed is just, it's crazy if you think about it. Let me see. I think I might have some examples, but this is what it is in 2016. Actually, that number is, I think, now 84, 90 billion, somewhere in that realm. It's like rising fast, right? That's how big the industry is. Now, look, like if people are making money because they're finding solutions, fantastic. I'm all about that. The problem is that if we look at this, right, and we looked at obesity, it goes like it goes, bam, right there. So we're not succeeding, right? As an industry or as a world, we're not succeeding there, right? And look, this is anytime you turn on the TV, like this is the shit you see, right? Lose up to 40 pounds in 8 weeks, guaranteed, 3 to 5 pounds a week. Lipozene, weight loss #1 supplement. Every week, I forgot the number of diet books that come out every month. It's like mind-boggling, mind-boggling. I just want to write the book, The Slovenian Diet. I'm from Slovenia, so just make some shit up, right? But you look at this, and like all the different diets, weight loss was not statistically different. Between anything, right? Between any different diet, there wasn't statistically different. And so I like to talk about the before, everybody knows the before and after picture, the before and after picture, right? The before and after picture. Now, I've been part of this industry for a long, long time, right? For a long time. We started our gym in Slovenia. We were actually the first gym of its kind in Slovenia when we started our functional training gym. And, you know, went through this phase where you do challenges. Like, we're running one now, and I'll explain how we do it, why we do it, what the challenge for us even means. But the problem with it is that I could take anybody that's going to be really serious right now for 8 to 12 weeks and get them in incredible shape, right? If you follow the step, right? And then we take them before and after picture. And I'm like, yay, woo, Luka's the man. I got hundreds of before and after pictures. I do, right? The thing is, the reason I don't post them anymore is because here's the thing. My after picture should be 3 years later in that person's life. Are they still like that? Are they living that life? That's the after. You know, what you see a lot of is before and afters in 8 to 12 weeks, and then a year later, they've regained the weight and added some. That's not success to me, right? To me as a coach, okay? Neither to the client, it shouldn't be. Okay, so this is what we want to, you know, when people go like, look at before and after. All right, cool, how long is that? Is it a year later, right? And, you know, this is obviously to show that I'm not a big fan of. But here's, because we're going to go into this, you know, unfortunately that show influenced a lot of things in a negative way, right? And we're going to talk about stuff like that. But, you know, the best diet theoretically means nothing if you just can't sustain it. And if it's not sustainable specifically to you, you know, so if your friend comes to you and says, listen, I've been doing this, right? It's been great. You should do it too. That doesn't mean it's going to be great for you, even if it's been great for them, right? You know, this is a perfect example, right? A friend of mine has lost 40 pounds in the last 6 months, and he said that he can sustain it for the rest of his life. Now, if that's the case, that's the best method for him, okay? Now, he's also previously lost 30 pounds and then gained back 60, right? In a very short amount of time, very short amount of time. Obviously, that was not the best for him, okay? And I'm happy that he's here now, like I'm helping him with that stuff and making it sustainable, right? So the best diet for you is the one you can stick to in the long term, period. Right? I don't play these camps. You know, what camp do you belong to? Paleo, this, that. I belong in the results camp and the camp of where you can continue to get results and stick with it. And it's not an overwhelming, stressful thing, right? So you may be angry and frustrated after hearing this, and I'm sorry for, honestly, like, if you're frustrated. I actually get really upset when people have gone through a roller coaster, because our mission here is to actually help people change for good, right? So it does frustrate me, but I don't want to, I want you to recognize the big problem and help with the solution, right? And sometimes it's not, like I said, it's harder because I've become good, I will say, at marketing and sales, right? And it's tough because I don't want to bullshit, right? And it's easy to bullshit and sell people like, oh man, this is going to be like this, and it's done, right? So to get to this point, right, I just want to show you guys the studies of this. So this is low carb, high fat, and this is high carb, low fat, okay? Same things happen, right? And this goes over and over and over and over again, where literally, whether it was one or the other, so you can actually see at the bottom, figure 1, fat balance is a function of fat stored minus fat burn oxidized. So has anybody ever heard, I'll give you a keto example, right? Because say that on keto, you burn more fat. Yeah, and this is true. This is true. But because you eat more fat, you store more fat in fat cells, and that becomes your primary energy system, right? When you eat more carbs, less fat gets stored, but you burn glycogen as your primary source. So it doesn't actually truly matter, right? Really, the energy balance equation is the most important part. That's the most important part. So it truly doesn't matter. There's a couple of functions of things like, are you more, full and you have more satiety on a certain diet, which is kind of sometimes individual. Great, if it works for you. But there is truly no difference, right? Higher fat diet causes great fat burning, but also greater for storage compared to calorie-equated low-fat diet. It produces a lower rate of fat burning, but also lower fat storage. It's called the net fat balance. The net fat balance is the only thing that matters, right? And it really kind of is equivalent. The only thing that really matters somewhat more is actually protein. So calories in, calories out. You've heard it, right? That weight loss, weight gain, it's all about calories in, calories out. It is. I wish it was just so simple, right? I wish it was so simple. But once again, guys, I really thought about, when I was doing this seminar, I thought about, hey, what am I going to present on? I got a lot of topics. I got a lot of things that I want to talk about. Anybody that's been here before knows I can talk, right? But I wanted to share the things that are impactful for you, that when you leave here, like, you can never unsee this, okay? So anybody ever seen the FedEx logo? Anybody ever seen the arrow in a FedEx logo, right? But once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? First time people are like, what, arrow in a FedEx logo? I'm like, look, oh shit, there's an arrow in a FedEx. Like, you can never unsee it again. Right? It's done. Like, now you've seen it, you can't erase it. That's what I want here, is that, like, now you've had this information that it makes you start going like, man, what am I doing? Hold up. Am I about to do this quick thing, detox? Hold up. Let me back up. Because I know the information. Right now I'm aware. Remember, awareness precedes change. So, all right, this is the actual study of the Biggest Loser participants, right? It's in kilograms. So kilogram is about 2.2 pounds. So right now you see kilos. So when you see this weight, so this is about 320 pounds-ish. And then you can see, so 30 weeks is how long the show lasted. Okay, and what you see here is that the measured resting metabolic rate. So this is how many calories they burned during just not doing anything, right? So you can see that most of the participants, the average was about 320 pounds. And their resting metabolic rate was, their predicted was 2,600, their actual measured was about 25. Now this is what's fascinating, okay? After 30 weeks, they dropped down to about an average of 200 pounds. So significant weight loss, 120 pounds. That is, by the way, in 10 months, 120 pounds is a very significant weight loss. Very, very significant weight loss. Here's where it starts getting very crazy, okay? So based on formulas and science, they predicted what their resting metabolic rate would be after 10 months. So 2,272, right? So their body weight dropped. Remember, their brain adapted their metabolism to slow down, okay? What they found is that was actually 1,996, okay? So huge drop, okay? Almost 700 calorie drop after 10 weeks. But this is where it gets even crazier, okay? Over that course of those 6 years, you can see that the average, over 90% of the weight was regained, okay? Over 90% of the weight was regained. This is what they estimated that would happen, is that their metabolism will slowly start creeping back up, This is what actually happened. It actually went down even more at 1,900 calories. So think about this, okay? Person lost 120 pounds, gained back over 100 pounds of that 120 pounds, and their metabolism was stuck 6.5 years afterwards at 1,900. So anything over 1,900 is going to be putting on weight for them. Do you see what I mean? And like I said, because this was a group of people that have dieted not only many times, but also very aggressively, right? Very, very aggressively. So this is when people say like, hey, the calorie equation, it doesn't work. I'm eating so little but gaining weight. No, the calorie equation works. They just did not account for what actually happens to your metabolism when you stress it so much, right? Because of that three-pronged approach that you saw. And you can't cheat it, right? Obviously, genes matter and genes have something to do with it, but you can't cheat this stuff. And the more times that you do it, the worse it gets. Okay, so extremists from both low-carb and low-fat groups will try to convince people that calories in, calories out model of obesity is antiquated, has been disproven. So if you guys have read anything, Gary Taubes, who said, hey, it's sugar and carbs, right? Sugar and carbs are the culprit of everything. It's been disproven over and over and over again. Disproven all day long, right? So I want to be clear. Different diets equal in calories have different effects based on their macronutrient compositions, as well as like processing, right? How you process the calories, absorption rates and stuff like that. But calories in, calories out is still, it's what works. It's what the model is, right? It's simple, but it can have some hiccups. So I'm going to go into this, okay? So we got calories in. So this is when we eat, what happens? This can be off a little bit, and here's why, okay? When you buy stuff at the stores, the labels are in databases are averages. So research shows that true calorie content of what you're eating is significantly higher or lower. So one medium apple, this is what they found. Might be 83 calories, might be 116, right? Average is 93. Those are pretty big differences, right? I mean, carrots, apple, it's just like fruit and stuff like that. Let's look at like white bread, 51 to 78. You got lean beef, 323 to 506, right? So even the labels are pretty off. Also, FDA takes a bunch of different, I would say, methods, so they literally account for 20%, I would say, mistake, right? So 150 calories could actually mean 130 to 180. Pretty big difference, again, right? It starts adding up. Then, we don't absorb all the calories that we consume, right? Total calories per gram of macronutrients. So scientists use this formula to come up with calorie counts that reflect only what we'll absorb. Here's what's interesting, and it's not actually written on here, but if you eat a real food, okay, like you absorb less calories because obviously your stomach has to do a lot of processing. If I eat a processed food, the more it's processed, they've done the work for me. So you're going to absorb more calories from a processed food than you are with an unprocessed food. Also, if you cook it, if you ate a sweet potato raw, you'd absorb way less calories than if you cooked the sweet potato. And then if you laid it down and it cooled down again, it'd be less calories again. Interesting, right? Here, my whole point to you is that it's not as simple, because people will say like, well, no, I just ate this much. It said this on here, right? And it doesn't work that way. Number 3, once again, the formula doesn't work for all nuts and seeds. You only absorb 68% of almonds, 79 of walnuts, 95 of pistachios. But when you eat a tomato, you actually absorb 17% more calories, 28 more of kale, right? So there's an error of 10% there. How you prepare food. An egg, when you buy it, if it says 47 calories, but once you cook it, it's 74. Steak, 196 to 240. Potato, 101 to 193, right? Everything is not as it seems. Now, listen, if you guys are tripping out right now, don't worry, we're getting to the point where you're going to be like, thank God he's giving me some good news. What's going on? Right? Also, depending on your gut bacteria, you actually may be able to absorb 150 more calories per day just based on a certain bacteria that you have, right? Now, you can see like those little things add up to hundreds and hundreds of calories now, right? And this is just the calories in part of it. And this honestly, this is the one that we can affect, right? Because a lot of the ones that I told you guys, some of them you can't affect. You can't affect your gut bacteria. You can't necessarily control, like you're going to cook the food, so if it's going to have more calories, it's going to have more calories. This you can control, right? This, once again, research studies. Eyeballing, right? Who eyeballs their peanut butter? You know what you do, right? Thin layer, like, whoosh. I just add some peanut butter, you know what I mean? And it's like the bread with the, like, you know, with a mountain of peanut butter. So, but this is what happens, right? Look, it looks very similar. Actually, my friend, I have one of my friends, Dr. Spencer Nadolsky, is an obesity doctor, one of the best in the world. You can follow him on Instagram, does a lot of that stuff. He posts this stuff a lot, where he'll post 2 plates and he says, which one's bigger? And you're like, shit, I don't know. But like one of them is like 150, 200 calories more, right? That's the same thing here. Look, additional half a cup of spaghetti, 111 calories. 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 120. Additional quarter a cup of ice cream, 130, right? And the thing is like humans are horrible at eyeballing it. Horrible, right? Because of course your brain part of it is like, nah, that's about right. Dude, didn't you do 3? Oh, nah, it was 1, I promise, right? So, and this shows up in another study here where they did, and they took a bunch of group of people and they said, listen, we're gonna have you do a workout, train as hard as possible, and then when you're done with training, you're gonna estimate how many calories you think that you burned, right? And then we're gonna take you to a buffet and you're gonna eat the amount of calories that you thought that you burned during training, okay? So what happened is that they estimated that they burned over 800 calories, okay? What they actually burned was 200. And then they went to the buffet and they ate almost 600, right? And so that's a 400 calorie difference right there. Once again, because you're kind of like, oh, I think this is what it was. And to me, what that really is this. I hope you guys on Netflix, you understand where I'm going with this, right? Damn it. Come on. All right, so also, you know, this is the thing, the arguments that some of my, you know, I'm very fortunate. Some of my friends are people like Dr. Nadolsky, Dr. John Berardi. You know, I spent a time studying like Lane Norton and all these guys that are like the best of the best in the world. And, you know, it's been proven, like I said, it's not carbs or sugar, anything like that. We just eat more food. We just eat more calories, right? And if you look at, like I said, from 97 to 98, and this is, like I said, old. I mean, 96 is 20 years ago. And just in that time, right, our daily snack consumption, look at how much it went up, right? Almost doubled. And then you look at calorie consumption, okay? Once again, this is 12 years old, right? This is 12 years old. And in that time frame, from the 80s to 2006, average calorie consumption goes up 570 calories per day. 570, significant. And since then, it's gone up. It's actually like the curve is going like this, right? So, and you know, we'll talk also a little bit about why that's happening. Hyperpalatable foods, things that are very easy for us to, you know, to eat, right? I grew up in 81 Yugoslavia, you know, before the war, so it's still socialism, communism. I'm like, you couldn't just go and just get shit from the store the way you do nowadays. You know what I mean? Like, grandma's like, look, I'm gonna go to the garden and get the potatoes and do this and that, and we're gonna cook. Fuck. Okay, right? And it's like this all. So, but if you look back in the day, when you look at these times, right, food was just harder to come across. Number one, we had to do more work to create the food. There's more cooking. Now it's like everything is so instant, so quick, so cheap, right? You can get thousands of calories for dollars, right? For dollars. And so that's part of what's happening, right? So the second part so we talked about the calories in part, right? So the calories we take in. Second part is calories out. So four main things that affect that. That's basal metabolic rate, so we talked about that. How much energy do you burn just living? Number 2 is NEAT, so that we talked about that. That's the fidgeting, right? How much you move, fidget. It's not training or activity. That's something else. This is straight up just non-exercise activity and fidgeting, right? And moving around. Then we have exercise activity, which is very self-explanatory. Training, whether it's cardio, whether it's lifting weights or anything else of that nature. And then number 4 is thermic effect of food, which is actually very, very important. Thermic effect of food is when you eat food, your body has to use a lot of energy to, I would say, break it down, right? And it's different for every type of food. We're going to go through that. And essentially, like, this is, you know, your daily expenditure is those 4 things together, right? That's what it is. And, you know, most of the time, the calculations, I like these basic calculations of how many calories you burn a day. You'll see later on that they may be quite off. But it's a good start, right? It's good to know kind of where you should be, right? So it looks pretty simple, but then again, it isn't, right? Because it can vary from day to day based on your activity, food intake, a host of other factors. So trying to pinpoint specific daily numbers is just difficult, And that's the other thing. Like, I want to make sure that like you guys don't trip out about that, because it's very, very easy for, I don't know, did I go over, did I go under? It's like, find that line and just stay there for a while and see, hey, did you lose weight? Did you gain weight? And then we adjust. Like, we adjust that. Like, if you found the smartest human being on the planet, and I know some of them that do this, right? They're like, Luka, the only way that we could know how many calories you burn is to plug you into a lab for 24/7. That's the only way. That's it, right? So there's a margin of error for every day to day, right? BMR is 60 to 80% of your daily allowance. So this is why it's so important, I would say, to understand having lean body mass and muscle, why it's so important, right? Because it uses up a lot of energy. But 60 to 80% of the calories we burn are just from living, right? Our body needs so much energy for the processes to go through it to live. Thermic effect is about 15, and exercise and NEAT is about 25. That's it. So, right, it just makes you realize that only about a quarter of our calories come from like things like training, cardio, and like moving around, right? A quick note about thermic effect of food, and this is why we always tell every client, we're like, hey, make sure that you're eating enough protein. Now, protein has a lot of functions, maintaining and building lean body mass, nitrogen balance. There's a lot of other things that it's important for, but when it comes to fat loss, right, it has a TEF, a thermic effect of food, of 20 to 30%. That literally means if you eat 100 calories of protein, your body will take about 30 calories to just digest it, right? So it's burning a lot of what it's taking in. Then carbs are only 5 to 10% and fats are 0 to 3. That's a massive difference, right? And that is the reason. So, I mean, look, anybody been to, I would say, Brazilian steakhouse? Meat sweats? Meat sweats. That's why, right? Because your body is just like trying to break that stuff down. Seriously, that's literally why it happens, right? But it's also a reason, like, protein is very filling. It builds lean body mass, has a higher thermic effect of food. One of the key things when it came to weight loss and fat loss was everybody ate a significant amount of protein, right? That was one of the markers, okay? Fiber also appears to have similar effect on reducing body weight when substituted calorie for calorie with non-fiber carbohydrate, because you just don't absorb as many of the calories, fills you up more. So, with that said, right, two things are apparent. Not all sources of calories are created equal, meaning they don't all produce weight loss the same, depending on the macronutrient. And two, the quantity of calories you consume matters more than the source. So when people say the quality of calories matters more than the quantity, it's not true. Although the quality is important, it's very important. Like, I don't want to be the guy saying here, like, just eat Twinkies. But look, you'll see diets all over and over and over again. Like a guy just that ate potatoes, nothing but potatoes, and lost 70, 80 pounds, right? And they did his blood work and it was fine, right? Just straight up potatoes, okay? Because he was under that deficit, okay? So quick summary here. Energy balance regulates weight and fat loss. Negative energy balance is a requirement for weight loss. You got to have it. There's no way to get around it, right? If you don't lose weight, then you just weren't in a calorie deficit. CECO, which is calories in, calories out, like it works. It is still the holy grail of everything, right? Not all sources of calories are created equal. And when calories and protein are equated, there does not appear to be significant difference in fat loss. Meaning, you want to eat more carbs? Cool. You want to eat more fat? Cool. You want to eat kind of equal? Cool, right? That should like make you pretty happy. But some of the stuff I'm going to fly through, because we just got to understand like things like, hey, what is metabolism? Right? On a basic level, it's extracting energy from food to use it for everything that we do in our lives, period, right? And as we discussed previously, dieting activates the body's self-defense system. So the more severe that you drop the calories, the more severe the metabolism is going to take a hit as well, right? And we have to clarify that not all diets have the same effect on the system. So, three main factors determine how strong the activation of self-defense system will be. Severity of the energy deficit. So, if you just drop 200-300 calories from where you're at, that's not going to be as big of a difference than if you drop 800, 1,000, 1,500. That's why these crazy low-calorie diets are horrible. They're not good for you, right? Because they activate the system more. How long the deficit is imposed. So, the longer that you go and diet, right, the more this defense system kicks in. And number three, how frequently the deficits are imposed, right? So if in a year, you went and did 2 diets, 3 diets, no bueno, right? All of those things are going to make things harder. So the body overreacts to dieting and not as predicted. And we kind of shown that before. I wanted to put data in here because I do want to make sure that you guys see, like, these are all studied things, right? Even though people thought it's only going to be 2,200 calories that they're going to drop down to, it was actually 1,900 something. So that means that, like, you got to keep eating less and less and less and less, right? So much of the decline in basal metabolic rate is due to reduction in weight and lean mass and dieting. So when your body weight drops, your basal metabolic rate drops, right? That's basically the baseline of that, okay? Remember when we talked about, like, your fidgeting, okay? So this is crazy, but research has shown that when you diet aggressively, your NEAT can drop down by as much as 400 calories with people that lost 10% of their body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you lost 20 pounds, you're going to burn 400 calories a day less by doing things like just small things, typing, fidgeting, moving around, right? That's crazy significant, right? It just shows you how much your body is going to overreact to things like that. And we got to keep in mind these things because when we end up making changes, they matter a lot, okay? So you can see that, like, when you plateau, what happens, right? You lose a lot of weight. Your calories are going to, over time, level out. So I've mentioned that before. So more adaptations, thermic effect of food changes, exercise activity changes. Anybody ever dieted really aggressively and had as much energy or could train as hard or go for as long? No way. No way. No bueno. You see people. It's like, all right, let's do warm-up. Warm-ups. I'm going home, right? Hormonal adaptations, that's a big one. You know, when people say thyroid and stuff like that, look, your thyroid gets affected with drastic weight loss and big calorie cuts. Decreased energy expenditure during refitting. Adipose tissue just means fat loss adaptations. Okay, this picture is very important, okay? It's another picture I want to use to scare you a little bit. So think of, like, your body fat cells, right? Like, it's a cell and it's filled with fat, or depending on how much body fat you have, it's halfway full or depleted or whatever, okay? So these are your body fat cells. You diet, they shrink, okay? Like, literally, this is kind of what happens. Now, if you aggressively diet, so I'll give you an example. Let's say you lost 30 pounds in 8 to 12 weeks, and then within 3 to 4 weeks, you regained it all. I've seen this happen many a times, by the way, guys. I've seen this happen many a times. So if it's very drastic, like if regain is very, very fast, what happens, and this is what the scary part is, fat cells increase in number. Okay, so new fat cells, you can see these ones, you barely see them. New fat cells get created. And then when fat cells grow, guess what? This is why you get the fat overshoot. This is why you'll get even more weight on top of it. And this is the tough part of when you try to lose weight, it's a lot harder, right? Because you're actually creating new fat cells. Now, most of the time, this happens with fast fat, like weight regain, right? If you regain weight over the course of a year, this probably doesn't happen as much. But if it's really fast, this does happen, right? And I do want to scare you because now all of a sudden, look, fat cells grow to their original size, but there's more of them, and now you have that extra weight on, okay? This, once again, these are studied examples of what happens when we lose weight and then regain it very, very fast. And why things like diets that are short-term, 8, 12 weeks, detoxes, things that like stop, and then you get the regain are so dangerous. And I want to scare you out of this stuff, honestly, right? Because these are the things that happen. So, and this is the reason why like we'll spend, if we are working with somebody on like dieting decently aggressively, we'll spend a lot of time on the diet after the diet, right? What do you do after you do a 16-week, pretty significant cut or something like that? It's not just like, hey, go back to what you were doing. It's reverse dieting, right? Or there's different examples of what happened, right? Now you might ask yourself a question like, hey, Luka, if we have a set point, then why do we go past the weight? You said that we have a set point, right? Why are we overshooting then? Well, this is Staleman, who is a scientist, said, look, we have a risk of starvation, so low end set point, right? Risk of starvation. And then we used to have the risk of predation, exceeding set point. So, hundreds and thousands of years ago, if you had a lot of weight on you, you'd be killed by a predator, legitimately, right? And so you'd be kept in that. Now, because there's been a substantial reduction in predator risk, I mean, If you guys go out in the streets, you're not going to get killed by a mammoth probably, or a tiger or anything like that. But through thousands of years, we've had a genetic shift. So there's less defense against weight gain than weight loss, right? So that's why on the side of starvation, we're protected, but on the upside, it's kind of gone out the window. Now, this is not 100% confirmed, but these are very, very, very smart people that are saying this is what we're seeing it as most likely, right? So it's unlikely that genetics drive obesity. So that's a good thing, right? It's a great thing. Genetics predispose us to obesity, and when you combine it with an environment that's obesogenic, so free access to highly palatable foods, cheap, calorie-dense foods, sedentary lifestyle, the obesity epidemic arrives, right? So that's where the problem is versus like the genes, right? But remember that overeating is also driven by psychology and sociology. We just showed some of the stuff that's happened, right? Portion sizes are bigger pretty much across the board. Dinner plates from 1800s were 40, 50% smaller than they are now, right? Always stuff like, when you were, I know that my grandma used to always tell me this. Like, she was like, man, clean your plate. You don't know the next time we'll have food, type of stuff, right? Like, and it gets ingrained in your mind, so you just clean the plate. Bigger plate, you clean the plate, right? Making sure you got good value for when you go for a meal. Hey, how many of you guys have gone to buffet and be like, I'm at the buffet, yo. Pay $25, I'm gonna eat $72, and then leave like, yeah, I got you, right? But the thing is like, these are all real things. Like, these are all real things. Obviously, pressure, social pressure, people you're around. You go home and it's like, hey, listen, I'm trying to, oh, well, I made this, honey, right? Or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of other factors that come into play here that, drive this. But just remember, genetics can only load the gun for obesity. Behaviors pull the trigger. That's a famous saying. But always think of it that way. It's called epigenetics and nutrient genetics, right? Your behaviors activate your genetics versus it just happens, okay? And that goes for everything. That goes for diseases, allergies, everything else. So you can pretty much change just about anything in your life through changing the behaviors you have, right? Which should make you excited because honestly, like, hey, in the next year, you could be the fittest you've ever been, the healthiest you've ever been, right? And change a lot of stuff in your other parts of your life as well, right? So just know that, look, to ensure success, you're going to have to go just as hard on after you lose the weight than you went to lose the weight. And this is what's not happening, right? Because you achieve that and then you're like, cool, coast, I got it, I'm there, right? So what really does work? Here we go. It's like, man, I'm leaving. This guy's just talking about what doesn't work. No, you got to know what doesn't work before you know what works, okay? So this pyramid has been adapted from Eric Helm's book, but at the bottom of it, you can see behavior and lifestyle, right? It means that everything that drives success is whatever you can maintain as a behavior and lifestyle. That's at the foundation of everything, right? So what's sustainable and you can adhere to? Sustainable, what you can adhere to. What can you consistently do over the course of a long period of time? Number two most important thing is calorie deficit. So calories in, calories out, right? Just because you eat clean and healthy, you can still overeat. Just because you eat, protein or low carb, you can still overeat. It doesn't matter. I can't tell you the amount of people like that, we're like, Luka, I eat super clean. I'm like, okay, cool. So what's the struggle? I got to lose weight. Because once again, you can overeat. Number three is exercise. This is actually going to be, you might have think like, what? Hold up. Exercise? Not macros? Not this? Not that? Nope. Exercise. You'll see why. All right. This is actually some new stuff. Number four is self-monitoring. 5 is protein and fiber intake. 6, carbs and fat, and then supplements way there at the top. And I don't think supplements are bad. I think there's just some basics that are important to take to prevent nutrient deficiencies. But beyond that, if anybody's selling you supplements super hard, like they're going to save you or anything like that, run away, right? So question is, what do the 5% do? So we're going to go over 7 different things that the 5% do that are able to keep the weight off and stay healthy with that, okay? So we talked about sustainability and adherence. So this is by far the most important factor in losing weight and keeping it off. So you got 6 people in a group. One goes like, oh, I do keto, I do low carb, I do 40-40-20 zone, I do this, I do that. And they're all in great shape, right? They've all kept it off. They just adhere to it. That's it, right? Nobody's right or wrong. Nobody's stuff is better, right? And that's important to understand because we get on this, we get on these, I would say, these arguments and these camps, and it's like, that's not what matters, right? So this is the same friend that I actually talked about, right? He went on keto diet and lost 30, then put on 60 and went back to eating normal. So, some people keep it off, but they don't see it as a diet, but rather a lifestyle. I also know some people that have kept it off, but it became a lifestyle. It's like, oh, I love eating like this. This is great for me, right? Flexible dieting, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Intermittent fasting, low carb, low fat. What makes it sustainable is very individual. I honestly don't care. I don't, like vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, doesn't matter. Honestly, the rules change a little bit, but it doesn't matter, right? So losing weight may be easy at a time and also monumentally difficult at times. Just remember that, right? It requires discipline, dedication, and willpower. However, we want to use the dietary strategy, employing behaviors that require a minimum amount of willpower to adhere it. So meaning, if it has to take a ton of willpower for you to start a certain diet, and you're already like, man, this is going to be tough as hell, you might have not chosen the best way to go about it for you, right? Because look, life is going to happen. You got work, you got kids, you got this, you got that, right? So make it as simple and easy as possible. Like that's what we try to help people do, is like not do the hardest thing, make it the easiest. You can make, as you get better and build confidence up, you can do that, right? Because look, there's no easy way to say it. Like with weight loss, it requires sacrifice and self-control, right? But there's other areas of life that do too. Career, family, personal life, spouse, kids, other stuff that you do, right? So in isolation, it may not be that hard, but when you put them together, it becomes difficult. If all I asked you to do was like, listen, you got to do nothing, don't worry about the kids, don't go to work, dieting that wouldn't even be hard. It wouldn't be that hard, right? You got all the time, energy in the world, you don't have to worry about stuff. It becomes hard when you plug in all these other things. Like that's when it becomes hard. So sustainability and adherence is the number one thing. You got to always ask yourself, can I sustain this? Can I stick with this, right? So people don't typically blow their weight loss diets when things are going smoothly. They blow their diets when work stress is high, kids are screaming at them, boss has them in a crunch, they're not getting enough sleep, life becomes tough, right? So we want to prepare for those things. We don't want to think that that's not going to happen. It's going to happen. It's life. We want to prepare so that we can still do it, right? So it's important. That's why it's important to find the easiest strategy for you. Don't pick a plan that requires maximum willpower from the beginning, right? That's going to fail 100% of the time. Like literally, you could quote this, okay? Don't pick a plan that requires maximum willpower from the beginning. It's going to fail 100% of the time. You're in day 3 and you're like, shit, right? Can't wait for this to be done. Wrong plan, right? There is no Staples easy button, man. Like there just isn't, right? So how to keep it off? The characteristics of successful dieters. So I'm going to go through 7. Cognitive restraint in some form, right? I doubt there's somebody who started that and said, hey, look, this is what they do. In some form or another, common trait of people who lose weight, keep it off, is that they practice some form of cognitive restraint. This includes any form of restraint that limits food intake, limiting calories, time-restricted eating, things like intermittent fasting, limiting certain macronutrients, low carb or low fat, portion control, tracking macros. Those are all examples. I'm not saying they do all of them. They may do portion control, start eating off of smaller plates. They might track their macros. Like I know there's people in this gym that are diligent tracking their macros, and they're great at it. Like one of my clients, Bonnie, she's like day 1100 of plugging her stuff in MyFitnessPal. It's like mind-boggling. I can never do it. But for her, it works, right? She's had incredible results over time, right? Calories, portion, like it's something. There has to be some form of constraint. Like every person has that in common, okay? So while it's important to employ a strategy that requires minimal willpower and sacrifice to be effective, every diet will require some level of willpower and sacrifice. I think a lot of times just knowing this and accepting this is a great beginning, right? Because what tends to happen, I call it the messy middle, right? You've seen this shit in life, right? Like, think of it like ship sails from shore, you're all excited, you're motivated, I'm starting this diet, woo, right? And then the messy middle comes, and you're like, damn, how much longer do I have of this shit, right? and it's like, that's the messy middle. And just accepting and like being prepared for the things that will come. Very, very important, right? And so here's my thing to you, right? Don't like the idea of never eating carbs again? Keto probably isn't your thing, right? Hate the idea of tracking macros every day? Flexible dieting may not be your thing, okay? If you find that you're crazy hungry in the mornings, intermittent fasting, at least at that time, probably won't be a good fit for you, right? You gotta like just say like, hey, you gotta know yourself and know that none of these is right or wrong and you're not bad, right? But what are you willing to sacrifice, right? So most people have a tough time intuitively eating. So you guys know what intuitive eating is? It means basically that you kind of eyeball stuff and you're like, okay, I think I know what I should eat and how much, right? The thing is, if that were the case, we wouldn't have an obesity problem, right? And now there's different, like I'm gonna show you guys like different ways of how you can do it where you don't have to just track calories. One of the things that I certainly want to bring up is like, I just like this image, but these are supposedly bad foods and these are good foods, right? Who here, like just raise your hands. In your mind, you have bad and good foods, right? There is no bad and good foods. A Twinkie is not bad. It's not. Like, it's made of chemicals. So is the other stuff, right? Because the problem is that like when you separate things into bad and good, when you go on a Saturday and you veer off a little bit, right? You're like, man, I ate bad foods. I'm a bad person. Nah, man, you just ate some foods that had higher calories and maybe not as many nutrients. Like, are you okay? You're good. Like, you know what I mean? It's all right. Existential questions, right? But seriously, this is important, guys. We get this a lot. You get this a lot where it's like, man, I'm eating bad foods, unclean foods. And I'm like, what's a clean food? Well, you know. Nah, I don't know. Like, what's a clean food? Tell me. Like, well, you know, like veggies and what else? Like, right? It's just you've been told this stuff, and it's not true. There is no bad and good foods, right? And we'll touch a little bit on what flexible dieting is, because look, if you tell me, Luka, you can't, and I've done like cuts for shows and macros and stuff like that, where I cut out stuff for 8 weeks and 12 weeks. I don't like it. I mean, I did it for like the shoots or whatever. Man, if you tell me that I can't eat certain things, I'm losing my mind, right? So flexible dieting is like, hey, look, like you can have whatever you want. Now, how much of it? That's a different story. And like you should have 80 to 90% of the real food, right? Unprocessed, real food without much labeling. And then you know what? 10 to 20%, you can have the other stuff, and you fit it into the plan, right? It's strategic. You fit it into the plan. And so we'll touch on that a little bit, right? Number 2 is self-monitoring. So self-monitoring falls into somewhat with number 1. Surveys of all successful losers, right? Losers of weight that kept it off, show that they took their body weight, measured their food, or practiced some form of measuring food intake. Please don't take this as you're weighing everything out. That's not what that means. Okay, it just means that like there was some form of tracking how much they're eating, right? Pictures as well. We're gonna get to that, right? There's cool, like now we got so many cool apps and things that we can do that you can pick and choose what works for you, right? Same thing with like monitoring their weight. Now, I know a lot of coaches that will say, hey, weigh yourself every day and average out the week. If that's fine for you, cool. I say like, hey, at least every 2 weeks, whether it's measuring pant size, measuring, I would say, inches around hands, waist, this, that, the other, weight, body fat measurements, all of those things, right? But the implications of measuring food are self-explanatory. If you're measuring it, you can take better control of what's in it. And you can make sure that it's aligned with your goals, right? The problem with a lot of food is like, hey, you go to the store, like, hey, give me that, and that. Okay, cool. Boom, you eat it. If I ask you 2 hours later, like, what did you eat? How much was in there? I don't know, like, I mean, like, I had a couple conversations with people that they were like, what's in this bowl? It's this much. No, it's not. It's more than that, right? We're not good at it. So it's like being able to measure, it teaches you a lot of stuff, right? Same thing if you're making your own food. If you make your own food, you know exactly what's in your food. You don't know if they like just gouged it with olive oil, like put it in canola, you know what I mean? Like that's hundreds of calories in a meal because the cook in the back's just like, not caring. Like if you make it, like you know what's in it, right? So not weighing in or any other form of progress check like measurements, pick, clothes fit, performance is out of sight, out of mind. Out of sight, out of mind. Now, if you haven't done something successfully for a long time, right? Because somebody might say, man, Luke, I see you do this all the time. I'm like, yeah, but I've done it for a long time. But I'm horrible at stuff like organizing and shit, right? Same thing, out of sight, out of mind, right? But if it's there to check you, now it's on your mind, right? Now it's like, oh man, I better adjust that, right? And that's why when people hit a goal and stop checking, they regress, right? When you get feedback, it's easier to self-correct. That's super simple. Like if you came in, you deadlift 200 pounds, right? Like you get to the end of the program, it's like you deadlift 320. Come back 6 weeks later, you didn't do anything. It's like you're back to 270. It's like, oh man, I got to get back on it, right? Same thing with things like progress picks. Same thing with like weighing in. Same thing with food, right? And yes, like I would love to tell you that there's just a way where you can just bypass all that stuff, but nah, there's no way. You got to do it in some form or another, right? Regular exercise. This may seem pretty obvious, but like this is a huge deal. This is actually something that we don't, because most people go like, yeah, I should exercise because it burns calories, or maybe, you know, it gives me lean body mass, which are very, very important, obviously, right? But in fact, we could argue that exercise should be your number one priority. Now, you might be like, oh man, you're a coach, that's what you guys have a gym, so, you know, that's why you're saying that. But over 70% of people who lost weight and kept it off engage in regular exercise programs, right? There is a correlation here, number one, for that. Besides the obvious benefit, which is you're burning more calories, you increase lean body mass, which means that you're just burning more calories living, right? Muscle is a huge user of energy. It's been demonstrated to lower the body fat set point that your body will defend even if you regain weight. So meaning if you're lifting weights and if you're exercising, your body set point will stay lower instead of you regaining weight after a diet. So that means that like even if you got off the diet, if you're lifting weights, you're in a better place just because of that, right? Big win. So we're just like, boop, check mark, win, right? Maintain exercise in post-diet setting has demonstrated to prevent increases in fat cell number that's sometimes seen with rapid post-diet gain. So the stuff that I showed you earlier, when the cells of fat get added on, well, if you weight train, that doesn't happen. Boom, another check mark, great, right? It also decreases expression of lipogenic, so basically fat genes, that may be increased by dieting. So it also traffics excess nutrients from energetically efficient storage to mechanisms to more costly ones. So it's shuttling energy to where you're burning is not getting stored, right? So you can see how like training does so much for us. Also, evidence suggests that it decreases hunger, right, and food intake post-diet. Not to mention, I think, well, there's more. Look at all that. Jeez. Insulin sensitivity, blood lipids, blood pressure helps with that. Every health marker that you can imagine beside dropping fat, and improves cognitive function, mood, and depression. Actually, a study just came out. It says that people at their jobs are 16-17% more efficient who exercise than people who do not. Now, just to give you an equivalent of what that means, that a person that works 50 hours a week to get their job done, the person that lifts weight can do it in 42. That's one working day. They save one working day a week just because they exercise. This is real stuff. They're happier people. They're mentally more resilient. So people that lift weights means when life happens, shitty stuff in life happens, they deal with it better because they're more mentally resilient because of strength training, because of working out. And it's honestly like it could be an hour and a half of me just talking about this, right? Because it really is that beneficial. Because many times people think, oh, lifting weights, only if I want to, you know, build muscle and or burn calories, like that's the function of it. It's like, no. There's so much more, right? There's so much more. So the main reason exercise has association with keeping weight off is physiological reasons we just discussed and all those pointers above. And then people who regularly exercise typically have more discipline and just make fitness more of an overall priority in their life. It's simple, right? Like, friend goes like, man, I want to be a better parent, Luka. So I'm doing all this stuff to be a better parent. Like, me and my wife, we're going to get some coaching on it and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, cool, man. Are you going to stop? Like, are you going to stop being a better parent? Nah, like, why would I do that? Right? My whole point was getting to the fact that, like, you know, he started and stopped an exercise program many times. Right? And I'm like, you don't get to that thing and then just keep it. Just like you get to being a better parent, you got to keep being a better parent. Right? And anything else in your life that you want, like, you have to keep doing it. It's not like, in a 12-week thing, I get my thing and then I can keep it forever. It doesn't work that way, right? It's who you become. If we have time, we'll touch on that too. Number 4, structured programs. So it's the age of information, so why not just find everything online? There really is, like, you can really find just about everything online. We're all human beings, and just having information has been proven not to be enough to make a change in the vast majority of cases, right? Like, it just is not, period, right? So humans like structure and having someone to put their trust in. Successful dieters tend to participate in structured programs and have much more, and have people that they could be around to keep the weight off. So basically, think association, right? So I have coaches in many areas of my life. Right now, like, I've got coaches in business to certain things that I'm working on in performance markers and so on and so forth, right? Like, and it's not that I don't necessarily have the information. It's association, accountability, and access, right? Those are the 3 things that matter so much. So engaging in a structured program increases confidence. So many people that have a tough time with losing weight or changing their bodies, right, the confidence is low. So being part of that program community has proven to raise success much more, right? And that's one of the things that comes up over and over and over again. So this is my formula is like this is where most people are at, right? Information, right? They have the information. But you have to take the information and create integration into your life, right? You have to take the knowledge and integrate it. And when you integrate it, it creates transformation, right? But usually it gets stuck here. And there's a whole, I would say, series of things that happen to integrate it. And that's the science of behavior change, right? Number 5 is the ability to focus on the long term, right? It's people who are able to lose weight and keep it off are able to think about the long term. They don't let short-term feelings and desire dictate behaviors. Even to an extent of something like, oh, right now I feel like this, so I'm gonna eat X, Y, Z. You know what they end up thinking? No, my goal long-term is this, and this aligns with my long-term goal much better. All right, so whenever I hear, I ask people like, okay, so what's your, where do you wanna be in a year, 2 years? Tell me what a win would be for you. Well, right now I'm getting ready for Cabo. No. Tell me about right? Like, I want to drive that because that's what matters, right? Successful weight loss maintainers have much lower levels of what research call recency, right? Recency is reliance on recent information at the expense of time-distant information. Okay, so example, someone who focuses on the fact they're hungry now versus the fact that they like to lose weight and maintain it in the long term. And I would just call that integrity, right? In business, I call it integrity. Do I make a decision right now because it's easy and it's a quick fix? And like in the short term, it'll give me some kind of, I would say, relief. Or do I make a hard decision for the long run that 5 years from now, I'll be like, man, thank goodness I made that decision, right? I have a little note. It's up in my folder that I write in every day. And it says, 5 years from now, will the person be happy that you made that decision? Like me, right? Because you can make a quick decision that's easy right now because you don't want to have a tough conversation. You know, you'd rather just, fuck it, I'm going to just gorge or whatever else it may be. But it's short term, right? But if you think about the person you want to be long term, the person you want to become, you make different decisions, right? So dieters who lose weight and keep it off don't focus on quick fixes, right? They likely have low recency and focus on the long term goal. Instead of trying to lose 10 pounds right now, no matter the long term cost, and we just talked about the long term cost, right? They focus on trying to lose 10 pounds in a sustainable way so they can keep it off for good. That's a big, massive difference. Trust me, that's a big difference, right? The research is very clear that they typically don't engage in popular fat diets, weight loss supplements, or liquid diets and fasts. Once again, studied, okay? And the last point is extremely important because yo-yo dieters tend to engage in these behaviors seeking any short-term weight loss that they can get. Man, I just want this quick. And then what, right? So there is no pause button in life, unfortunately, right? Or fortunately, okay? And I call this the pause button mentality, okay? Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this is my philosophy and our philosophy around when it comes to movement training and nutrition, right? Most people will either go, you know what, I'm going to get back when things calm down. How many times have you said that to yourself? I'm going to get back to doing this when things calm down. I'm like, this is life. Should never calm us down. So you have a dial, right? So maybe like, hey, maybe you were planning to do a challenging 60 to 90 minute workout. Man, kids are crazy. Something went wrong at work. No way you can make it to the gym with your coach. You know what? You'll get a 3. 10-minute workout next to bed in the morning. You just dial it down, right? You don't stop. It's not all or nothing, right? You don't dial it down. Same thing with nutrition. Hey, like 10 is like run organic farm and health spa, all meals prepped by sports nutritionists. I mean, you know. But hey, maybe right now you're at a 0 and like if you do a 3, you're winning. You're dialing it, right? Dial it up and down. You don't stop. You don't quit. Same thing with wellness, overall wellness, sleep, meditation, things like that, journaling, okay? Same thing, you dial it. Because, hey, life has its, I would say, its seasons. Let's put it that way, right? Sometimes I got crazy 20-hour days, right? And I committed to projects. My work, like, I'm going to work out tonight. I had something else planned. It's not going to happen. But I'm going to knock out a quick 30-minute thing just to feel better. I'm going to dial it down, okay? So what's important is, like, remember, once again, this is a quotable from my friend Dr. John Berardi. Not all or nothing, but rather always something, okay? Not all or nothing, always something. Because it's called the pause button mentality because once you stop being perfect, you just fall off. Fuck, I didn't do it exactly how it says, so I'm just going to wait, and then start again when it's a better time. And then you keep doing that. That's what dieting mentality is like. You get on a diet, you're on a diet, everything's going great. Week 5, week 6, then crazy stuff happens, you fall off and you're like, oh man, I'm done. That's it. I'm not perfect anymore. Then stick to the thing like it said. And this is a mindset. This is a perspective, right? And it's detrimental in any area of your life. Because it doesn't just happen in fitness. It happens in, hey, you want to write a book? I just wrote an email the other day. One time I went 44 days of writing straight, right? Then I missed a day. And then the next month I did 3. Why? Because it wasn't perfect, right? And just to remember to always keep getting back on the train, always something. Number 6, social support. During diets and in weight maintenance has been linked to both positive and negative outcomes. Now, I'm going to touch on that, right? Because I should be the person that says it's only positive. But based on the research, it appears that compliments and active participation produces good, favorable outcomes, right? So positive reinforcement is massive. Like we do, we shine a light on positive things a ton, okay? Same thing with participation, accountability, having friends, family that come train with you, having coaches, a community that supports you. Proven over and over and over again, right? But so does being a part of supporting communities, coaching guide without judgment. So that's the second part that I was talking about. Now, active participation is best, having people you care about doing with you, keeping you accountable and supporting, okay? But if part of it, and providing instruction can sometimes have a negative impact. So what I mean by that is like, look, if I just tell you what to do all the time, or people in your life are like, why don't you just do that diet? Why don't you just do this, right? That can become negative, right? So we do something called coactive coaching. Now this is too deep to go into, but let's just call it this way. Coactive coaching, you make decisions. I'm not telling you, like, here's this meal plan, go home and do it. Oh, you didn't do it? You messed up. You're a failure, right? It's working with the client to figure out a way that works for them. That's coactive coaching, right? Because guess what? You know more about your life than I will ever know, right? You're the master of your life. And I always call it like this, right? We're Yoda, you're Superman, right? That's how it works, or Skywalker, whichever one you prefer, okay? Here's some other characteristics of successful dieters. They eat lower calorie foods. They consume high protein, we talked about that one. They consume higher fiber foods. Flexible control of a diet versus rigid controls, right? All or nothing thinking. I'm completely clean on this diet all the time. People that are successful don't think like that. Consume lower glycemic index sources of carbs. So just think of like carbs that like process a little slower, right? Rather than sugary processed carbs. They limit snacking, limit stress, and eat mindfully. These are actually really big. It's been proven people that sleep less and stress a ton, because guess what? What drives eating? Emotional, right? Emotions drive eating, right? You get pissed off, you're like, give me that Merlot, or whatever else it is, right? Like everybody's got their vice and their habit loop. So don't eat in in response to stress and emotions. This is tricky, so it's not exactly a choice for some people. This actually gets deeper. And if this is you, we help with a lot of that stuff, but like I actually do recommend to a lot of people go see maybe a specialist, therapist. I'll tell you first of all that I've been in therapy, and it's one of the best things to do because it gets judged a lot. Saying like if you say you work out, people are like, man, I love that you're taking care of your physical health, right? And then you're like, hey, go see a therapist. Ooh, fucked up, right? And it's like, well, I'm just trying to take care of my mental health. I mean, I thought that'd be important, but I guess not, right? So seriously, like anybody ever wants to talk about that to me, like just let me know, seriously. Don't stay up very late. Well, I messed that one up right there. But satisfaction with results. So I'll tell you something about this because this is big. Satisfaction with results, okay? I encourage people to write down 3 wins every day. 3 wins, okay? It can be the smallest win or the biggest win. It could be hey, I bought somebody coffee today, made me feel really good. Win, boop, right? Got a great workout with my friends. Awesome, win. Hey, finally finished this project for work, win. Do it every day. I call it strategic confidence. One of the biggest problems in our lives, I've been I would say a culprit of this, and still working on it, right? Chasing the horizon, right? Hit a goal, the horizon never comes. When you get there, it's already in the future, right? And so this is another mindset perspective thing that like you beat yourself up. You get there, you have this temporarily, ooh, that was great, and then the next thing, right? And you have to learn to appreciate what you've achieved. Big or small, because it teaches you and trains you to be grateful and appreciative of the things that you have in your life, right? I think I was doing a podcast with you the other day. I was saying, hey, look, until you don't appreciate what you have, you don't get more. right? You don't get more of it. Or if you get more of it, you won't appreciate it anyway, so it won't matter, right? So the 3 daily wins, if you do that, that means that every week you get 21 wins, big and small. Do you think that you're going to be more confident going into the next week when you've acknowledged 21 things that were great in your week? Fuck yes. Absolutely. That's why I call it strategic confidence. Learned this from Dan Sullivan. I started doing this stuff, and then guess what? There was 90 days where I was like every single day I was doing my wins, right? And I found myself just being like, man, I can do anything, right? Because I practiced being appreciative and shining a light on the things I've done good. But we're very good at doing what? Telling ourselves we suck, we haven't done enough, we're not good enough, right? Even when you do good stuff. Yeah, I know, but Carl is lifting more than me. Dude, you just put 50 pounds on the deadlift. I know, but look, Carl's so buff, right? That's the tendency that we all have. And so you have to train your mind to change that, right? It's practice. I call it everybody gets physical weightlifting, but then there's also mental weightlifting, and then there's emotional weightlifting, right? That exists, and you can train your brain to have a different perspective. So this is a big one, satisfaction with results. High level of emotional intelligence and mindfulness. You know, the kicker is that a lot of things in our lives drive the things that we do, right? So even some information about eating that you may already know, but you haven't worked on mindset and emotional intelligence, and that continues to drive, for instance, reaching for food, and that becomes, I would say, something that gives you, pleasure to relax you or whatever else, right? So it is a holistic approach, and I didn't want to kind of veer off in this too much. I've done seminars on stuff like that. I'm going to continue doing them. But it does matter, though, because the more I would say that we also improve our perspective of the world and mindset, the better off we're going to be physically, right? So tracking food intake. We're gonna do a couple more things before we end. Let me see where we are with time. I've done worse. Done worse, all right? So writing, look, because everybody, most of the time when I start saying tracking, people go man, I don't want to do MyFitness. I don't want to do apps. It's cool. Me personally, I hate doing app tracking. I hate it. I don't do it, right? But it can start with writing it down with a pen and paper. You simply write down what you eat, when you eat it, and how satisfied, full you feel. I actually also like for you to write down how you felt, right? Because people be like, man, I just had an argument with my boss. And it's oh, 3 burgers. Got it. Okay, makes sense, right? Because the thing is that you start recognizing what's happening, right? And remember, awareness precedes change. So if weight loss is your goal, you don't want to gorge yourself to where you feel bloated and stretched out after a meal, right? And if you feel like that way, you're going to write it down. Be like, man, maybe I overate, okay? Taking a picture. I'm actually going to show you a couple apps that I really like that are non-dependent on putting everything in as far as calories and stuff go. Right, we all have cell phones now that can take pictures. For this method of tracking, you simply photograph a picture of what you eat. After you review it and base it of does that meal, I would say, match your goals, right? We do this a lot where I'm just like, hey, send me a pic every day. Just shoot me a pic. Even though there's an app that I'll show you guys in a second. So then you got obviously calorie macronutrient counting using an app. I mean, MyFitnessPal, everybody kind of knows that one. There's a bunch of other ones. I would encourage you to still try it. I think a lot of people will say that's not for me. And once they start doing it, at the beginning it's a little bit of a cluster, but it gets easier and easier. So obviously pen and paper, everybody gets in MyFitnessPal. This is called U8. I've been using that with a lot of clients. And basically what you do is you take a picture of your food, automatically tracks what time you had it, and then you actually pick and you say, is it in line with your goals or is it not in line with your goals? How did you feel when you ate it? You can fill out a lot of different stuff. So it has nothing to do with how many calories and stuff, but I'll go hey, let me see your day. All right, what do you think about this one? What's something that you could have changed, right? It still gives you feedback, right? It gives you feedback, but this is what's important here, right? My actually preference, if you guys know, we're big on precision nutrition. This is an example of a meal for a guy, which would be 2 palms of protein-dense foods. Actually, let me flip here first. Okay, this is, to me, one of the best ways that you can track food, that's not stressful. Okay, so basically, 1 palm of protein-dense foods. That would be for women. Like that's where we start, right? So you can look at, I mean, you could go on a plate in the restaurant, go like, okay, palm of protein, right? You got a fist of vegetables, you got a cupped handful of starches or carbs, and then a thumb of fat, right? And usually what we'll do is we'll start for guys, it'll be double the portion. For women, it'll be one, and then we'll adjust it from there. The kicker is that, like, here's your tracking tool. Everybody got one, right? So, and it doesn't stress you out like, man, I gotta do this. So once again, this is a tool, right? I've showed you some tools. There's a lot of different tools. You pick the tool. I'm not the person who's like, you gotta do this, right? Because if you don't choose it, you're not gonna do it. But that's what it would look like. And that's had a lot of success for us. And like I said, Precision Nutrition does these. They've done it with, over 60,000 people now personally and over hundreds of thousands of coaching. So, but here's the kicker, right? Tracking your food in some way is the epitome of cognitive restraint. And in my opinion, probably the best thing that you can do for your nutrition knowledge. And that's really the key, for your nutrition knowledge, okay? For your nutrition knowledge. Because you'll never learn more about nutrition than you do by simply tracking and understanding what's in your food. I could literally, and guys, like I literally can't talk for like a month straight. And I could do that, and you'll never learn as much as if you're actually making your stuff, right? I'd challenge you, hey, make all your food for a month. And I know that's difficult. Like, look, I don't make all my food or anything like that. But if you did, I guarantee you'd lose weight. I guarantee you. First of all, because you have to, and I'll show that example, right? You have to really think about what you're gonna make. I'm gonna make some pancakes, and it's like, shit, that's a lot of work. I'm not gonna make pancakes, right? But that way, like, you know what? When we have a discussion, you'll know what high protein is, you know what high carb is, you know what high fat is. You'll have better context of all these things because you learn about it, right? That's why I tell people, man, go to the farmer's market, talk to the farmers, like begin having a relationship with food, right? We've stopped kind of having that, and then we don't really know what's in what, you know what I mean? So handful of nuts, track it. Bowl of salad, track it. Quick bite of chocolate, track it. Drink those calories, track them, right? Tracking makes you more accountable. Many people think they're eating in a deficit, but in reality, they're snacking so much. And this is what we came back to, right? We're not good at knowing these things. So tracking is important. So at first, it's a pain in the ass. There's just no getting around it, right? I mean, it's like I do a bunch of business coaching. It's like, Luka, I want to be a millionaire. Okay. All right. Where do we start? What is it that you want to do? Like, how do you want to impact the world? I don't know, man. I just want to be a millionaire. I'm like, shit. Okay. Once again, I'm like, okay, here's all the stuff you're going to have to do. I was like, damn, that's a lot of work. Yeah, it's going to be a pain in the ass, right? There's just no getting around it, right? It won't be intuitive, and it will take you some time to figure out what you ate. It will. I want to give you the realness, right? But here's the thing is, after you get through the initial learning curve, things get exponentially easier, right? And today, yeah, like I can eyeball food and be like, oh, this is that, this is, it's like, dude, like X-ray vision? No, like I've just done it for a long time. I just know, right? And after you do it for, 6 months and a year, like you'll know. You'll be like, nah, doesn't match my goals, right? And that's important. And just remember, it's my favorite saying, truth is undefeated, right? When you get the data, you can't make shit up. Like if you bring it to me and you're like, I'm like, okay, let's work on this. Right? And I think a lot of times is why people don't track stuff, because it's like you kind of know that you're not in line with your goals. You hear this all the time. No, man, I've been doing really well. Okay, cool, show me. Whoa, I didn't track it down. I said, cool, what did you eat like 2 days ago? Nobody remembers. 2 days ago, I think I had. I'm like, man, if you can't remember what you ate 2 days ago, how are you going to be on point? Is it in line with your goals if you can't remember it? Impossible, right? Impossible, right? So the other thing is, and this you've probably heard, but like, hearing it and integrating it, two different things, right? Make it hard. Like for weight control, it's good to eat at home. It has nothing to do with chemicals, eating clean, or whatever fuckery people may have told you. It just serves two purposes, right? You know exactly what you're putting in your food, so you'll know without a doubt, whether or not you're dripping butter and olive oil over your veggies and adds hundreds of calories. Because you guys have seen, like, for instance, Cheesecake Factory has like put a lot of restaurants now have to put calories on their menus. Right? Cheesecake Factory salads start at 1,200. Right? When you're like, man, this is salad, man. This is great. Look, Luka, I see a Cheesecake Factory salad. I'm like, yeah, that's 1,800 calories. Right? But the thing is, that's why. Like, you make it at home, you know what's going to happen. right? You'll know whether you actually want the food item that you think you want. Eggs, grits, biscuits, short, stack of pancakes. But man, do I really want to make that, right? It really kind of creates that realness, right? Keeping calorically dense foods out of the house, if you want to get them, you have to go to the store, right? You want to get ice cream? You're going to have to go to the store and buy it. Cool, you can still get it. But guess what? Now you're like, I don't want to drive to the store for 20 minutes and 20 minutes back for a damn ice cream. Exactly, right? You remove the bad habit as far away as possible and it becomes harder to do. And then you keep better options in the house. Eggs, rice, like beans, veggies, chicken, fish, apples, and all the stuff that your grandma told you about. You know what I mean? And you keep it there, and guess what? Then that's what you're going to go for, right? Things like donuts, pastries, pancakes, they're what's called hyper-palatable foods. So one of the things that the food industry did is like they took stuff that makes our dopamine in our brain explode. Sugar, salt, right? And then on top of that, it was called gelatin, right? Basically, think protein as gelatin. So when you put all those three together, your brain is like, woo, right? Give me more of that. So because of that, they taste great, but they lack a lot of nutrients, right? You're not getting a lot of minerals, micronutrients from them. You're just not. And so which you get from other foods that we listed, right? So foods like salmon, chicken, broccoli, the good boring stuff, like you get a lot from it, but it's harder to overeat because you get more full, right? You have more satiety. And it doesn't suck, like especially once, you learn how to make foods that are a little bit more, I would say, better tasting, like you're fine. Like the thought process that, quality food doesn't taste great is a mistake, right? So, and in this particular, case, we're not talking about weighing everything by the gram. We're talking about making solid, educated guesses, right? So I've shared plates before. You guys have seen, I love this idea of PN, right? Like if you looked at your plate, does it look like this? Protein, veggies, starches, fats, and some fruit, right? I love that because you can go to somebody and say, hey, look, does your plate kind of look like this, right? And be like, oh man, it does. I know I have a correlation. Canada just came out with this, by the way. This is phenomenal, I think, right? U.S. is getting better, but this is the new Canadian kind of plate, right? If people ate like this as far as like the breakdown, plenty of veggies and fruits, protein, whole grain foods, and then you got water as your drink of choice. Man, that's great. All right, so we're getting somewhere with that, but the whole point of it is like, could you look on top of like, you guys see my IG stories, right? I always take a picture of the food on top because it gives me like the idea of what it's like, right? So visual things, planning and structured flexibility. When I say planning, I don't mean you have to eat out of Tupperware containers for every meal. I really don't mean that. Like I don't like that, and there's a time for that too. Right? We have a company that delivers meal, which for one time a day, it can be great. You know exactly what's in it. It's got 450 calories, tastes pretty good, doesn't cost a ton. It's a solution, right? But what it means is you should have some regularity with your meals, okay? Research shows that eating similar meals from day to day can decrease appetite and reduce calorie consumption. There's always a joke, right? Like I go to the same spots all the time. I walk in and like, same thing, Luka? Yep, right? Because first of all, I enjoy that food, and I know what I'm eating all the time, right? So when you eat similar foods in portions, it can reduce cravings. Every day it's easier to track what you eat. And obviously there's a fine line, but I always actually encourage people, if you're in a place right now where you're like, I want to improve my health, I want to lose weight, I want to change my body, I say for the first 60 days, 30, like, don't eat all the same foods, but have a smaller choice, okay? Because it's less for you to think about. The more different foods that you eat at the beginning, the harder it is because now you got to calculate for or think about all these different foods and how much calories they have. Does it fit or not? Like I call it a 3-2-1, right? And you can flip and do a 1-2-3. One thing for breakfast, one option for breakfast, 2 options for lunch, 3 options for dinner. Or you can do the other way around if you like breakfast more. 3 options for breakfast, 2 options for lunch, 1 for dinner. 3-2-1. It's 5 different meals, and you do that nonstop. Because guess what? After 45, 60 days, you're going to feel good and confident about what you're doing. You're going to see results. You start getting some more variability, right? So this is different than eating clean or thinking good versus bad foods. It's just structuring also, like, for instance, you plan on every Friday I go to the movies, I eat popcorn and Reese's Pieces. That's my thing, right? And I mush them together. If you don't understand that, I'm sorry. You need to work on some stuff. But the thing is, I plan it. And then on Saturdays, I usually have dinner with my friends, and it's kind of like, hey, if I want to have some burgers or pizza or whatever, it's planned, right? You look at your week and you say, hey, look, where's my 20% going to come from? Like, man, I love going to the movies with my wife and having some pizza. Cool. That's going to be Friday. Hey, I love brunch on Sundays. Great. Plug it in. Don't feel bad about it. Have it, right? But it's planned and it's structured. Instead of being like, oh, I feel so bad for eating these bad foods, right? They're not bad foods. You're just planning it and structuring into your plan, right? And yeah, I quoted myself. I know I had to do it at least one time, damn it. But when you don't have a path or a plan, the default is struggle, right? Remember this. This is not just for food. This is for anything in life. When you don't have a path or a plan, the default is going to be doing exactly what you're doing right now. And if you don't want to do what you're doing right now or have what you have, or you want to have something else, you need a path and a plan. And you need accountability, and you need people to coach, support you, to guide you, because that's what makes it a lot easier and a lot better, right? So I'm going to finish with the last couple ones. There's actually a whole another part that I'm going to do on behavior change. And so here's the kicker. If you guys join the 8-week challenge tonight, I'm going to do a whole webinar posted in there that's going to be all about that. But I'm going to end with the last slides of, I would say, the eating part. And like this, this is something that we deal a lot with our, with ourselves too, but like, with many clients that come through, where the week will be great, right? I'm doing awesome, right? And then all of a sudden, you see that little party hat? Yeah. That's Friday night, by the way, right? Friday night, and then Saturday is a shit show, right? And then back Sunday. But here's the thing, right? Like, because you had a great week, and then one night and one day, took you from your 1,800 calories, to 2,300 because there was so much over, right? One day can ruin your week. It can. Like, if you binge off, it can. Like, 2 nights of drinking. Remember, alcohols just have a lot of calories, right? Especially when you do fruity drinks. I love fruity drinks. Moscow Mule all day. But you have to be really aware of that stuff, right? Because like in 1.5 days, and people will go like, but no, man, like I'm telling you, like 6 days, I'm good. But that 7th day, look, if you go to Cheesecake Factory, I literally calculated it, right? You do 2 appetizers, and this is what I see people eat, like 2 appetizers, a main meal, and a dessert. You're at 5,000 calories, no joke. 1 slice of cheesecake at Cheesecake Factory is 1,600 calories, right? Fried zucchini, which I love, is 900 calories. I was like, what? It's crazy. So you do a fried zucchini, you do another appetizer, you do a main meal, you do a cheesecake, you're at $5,000. $5,000. Like, let's say your maintenance is 2,000. That means you're $3,000 over. Split up 3,000 over the other 6 days. Calculated. You're 600. You see what I'm saying? You're 600 over, or sorry, 300 to 400 over on that, right? So notice how quick one meal can literally put you over for the week. This is why the whole, I would say, being aware and tracking it to a certain extent, it matters a lot, right? So while flexibility is crucial, too much can be a bad thing. If you're too flexible and sporadic, you may struggle with sticking to your diet, right? Because tracking and monitoring becomes more difficult. When you're eating similar meals, tracking is easier. Eating completely different things every day just makes it harder. Okay, over time, yeah, good to eat in a structured way most of your day, and then allow for fun. Don't say cheat meals, right? Don't call them cheat meals, because cheat meals means that like you're cheating, right? Like, what are you cheating on? Like, I'm cheating on myself. No, it's just calories. Like, it's not that serious. But you do have to. It's a fun meal. Have them a few times per week, 2-3 times a week, right? While still making sure that you're tracking and monitoring. Life becomes a lot better when you do it that way, because you're not tripping out. You can still be losing weight. And like, if you like ice cream, you like fries, you like this, you can plug it all in, and it's okay, right? So if you have higher calorie meals with friends and family, you can accommodate in a few different ways, right? You can eat mostly protein and fiber into your big meals, so you have more carbs and fats to allow to. You can fast. This is my favorite one, by the way. So when I go to Slovenia, and I always, go to like these great restaurants where I know I'm going to eat, I legitimately have one smoothie and nothing else the whole day, and then I just eat like crazy. But like, if I plug it in, like I just fast until that, and I know it. Now that's my strategy. You don't have to do that, but that's a strategy you can do, right? Best case scenario is to plan your fun meal ahead of time and pick out what you'd like to eat. Hey, I'm going to go to this restaurant. Okay, cool. What are you going to eat? I'm going to eat this and this and that. Great. So now you already know when you're going in that you're going to eat it. Okay? Time restricted eating. So that's what I'm just talking about as far as like intermittent fasting, 16-8, 24, things like that. These are all tools in the toolbox, right? Tools in the toolbox. Because remember, like, hey, look, you could go eat normal, and then on Saturdays, because you know you're going to eat out, just fast for 16 hours. There is no rules. You do what fits your life. There's just a toolbox, right? The more tools you have in the toolbox to pick from what you want to do, the better off you are, all right? And basically, you guys already know, like, alternate between fasting periods where you eat and feeding periods where you don't eat. That's intermittent fasting. Okay, I'm going to finish off with this. Like I said, there's definitely more, but when we talk about consistency, it doesn't mean doing the same exact thing every single day for the rest of your life. That's not what it means, okay? It's not what it means. That would drive, 9:30, turn on the lights, just so you know. So I know. So that would drive you nuts unless you truly thrive on like crazy routines, which some people do, and that's fine, right? But consistency is about making the right choices so often that they become habitual. Repeat that. You make the right choices so often that they become habitual. And then you don't have to think about it because that's what you do, because that's who you've become, right? How do you get there? Consistency, right? But not only that, adherence to your style of tracking and eating. Not my style of tracking and eating, your style. Whatever fits for you, right? For us, what we do as coaches is we help you find your style. We help you find what works for you, right? You could theoretically have a perfect diet, but if you adopt it for one day, it won't matter. It doesn't matter, and that's what happens. These perfect diets that like nobody can stick to, right? And so just know that the last thing, you guys have probably heard of this Maslow's theory. This goes for anything, right? When you don't know, this is what I said, when you don't know what you don't know, it's called unconscious incompetence, right? I'm not good at something, and I don't even know it, right? Level 2, like maybe today I've brought some things to your attention. You're like, oh, shit, right? So conscious incompetence, right? You're conscious of it, but you're not good at it. Like you haven't mastered it. You have problems with it, right? Level 3 is conscious competence. Now you know exactly what to do, but you have to spend time thinking about it. I'm sure you guys know this. It's like you can do it, like you know how to do it, you're doing it, but it's still hard work. It's not automated, right? And then the last part, and this is mastery, it's where you finally want to arrive at, is unconscious incompetence. It's just unconscious competence. You do the right thing, you don't have to think about it. It's just part of your life. It's habitual, right? And so that you want as many things in your life that are positive habits, not just in fit, like how you treat people, how you treat yourself, from your sleep patterns to things that, like I said, perspectives and mindset. Like you want to get to a place where you're here, okay? And that's practice, right? And so while like I've talked a lot about nutrition today because I felt like this was one of the things that really has to come out as far as like what happens, with dieting, because it is detrimental. It's like you can dig yourself a deeper and deeper hole. It's not like you can't get out of it, but it becomes harder and harder, right? But there's a massive part of, I would say, practicing this as well. It's something that we constantly keep bringing back up. So with that, I've shared, there's more here. What I'm going to do too is, like I said, if you're in the challenge, I'm going to shoot the second part of this, which is powerful. And, to be completely, like the reason why I do this stuff is because I really want to help. And, Jess will always be like, God, man, you put so much stuff in there. Like there's, but it truly is because I want to educate and get that information and help you guys integrate it, right? And obviously that's what we do through coaching, but to integrate it so that it helps you change. It's not like this, like, let me just go on forever about stuff, but these are important things, So when I create these, I would say long seminars, it is for you, right? It really, really is for you. Because certainly it'd be better for me to just do 30 minutes and be like, deuces. Just buy a bunch of supplements, guys. But, with that said, like, hey, if you don't apply this, it doesn't matter, right? For everybody that's here, that's never been here before, you guys know we're starting an 8-week challenge tonight and all the way through Saturday. So both for members and non-members, if you guys want to join, if you guys want to talk to me afterwards about that. But if nothing else, I take something that you learned today and apply it, right? There's a lot of stuff here. Take one thing, right? One thing. From every single conversation that I have with a person, my mission is one, if you go and actually do something. And you hit me up, it's like, yo, I did that thing that you talked about, and it's 6 months later, it's doing great. Or it's 3 months later, and I've had success with it. Then I'm like, man, I did my job, right? So if put it this way, if you can do me one favor, is do something, right? If you can do me one favor, do something, and then let me know that you did it consistently for a while, and tell me what results you got. And I'll be happy. right? But the hardest thing is like when the information is shared and it doesn't get integrated, so it doesn't become transformation, okay? With that said, thank you guys, appreciate your time. I almost, I went over. All right. Love and appreciate you guys. I'll be around if anybody wants to ask any questions and talk. Thank you.